Welcome back to College Football Addiction. Zach, we finally made it to week one. We got a little appetizer last week, but I don't know that we could get a bigger matchup than we have starting at noon on Saturday. Are people pissed off that it's noon? Probably.
my, right.
National champions and still upset about things, but that is college football, I suppose. Noon kickoff in the shoe for Ohio State and Texas. A rematch of our semifinal, one of the better playoff games we got last year. Went down to the wire until the pick six late. The quarterback matchup in this is interesting. We've talked through the offseason about saying and always assumed he would win the job. What, scale of 1 to 10, what is Ohio State's confidence level in him?
I think it's about a 7 right now. I mean, he at Elite 11 MVP, he is a 7-on-7 warrior quarterback. It's the big concern is he's not the biggest kid. He's young. And how's he going to handle pressure? How's he going to handle taking a sack, and how does he bounce back? Will he, start to kind of shut down, or will he thrive and push through adversity? And that's the big question mark amongst the coaching staff, let alone Buckeye fans, is what is Julian Sayin going to be like when bullets are flying? You even go back to the spring game, they didn't do anything. I mean, they didn't blitz. They didn't even align wide and get good pass rushes. I mean, they let him have the cleanest pocket alive, and that was for a reason. They didn't want to destroy his confidence because his weakness is when he's under pressure. He I don't know if he's the toughest kid. But we're going to find out. I mean, number one team in the country coming in town. We're going to definitely find out.
What about on the other side? Looking at Arch Manning, there's obviously more hype here than maybe any quarterback since Tim played down at UF and you were there. The Arch Mania is insane. Talk to me about him going up against, there's, you've got the best safety in the country on the other side, elite linebacker play, like a pretty rock solid defense. Although there's been some change on that defensive side of the ball from a coaching perspective. Thoughts on Arch taking on that level of competition in week one on the road?
Well, it's crazy because I think Ohio State has a chance to be better than they were defensively last year, and they were the number one defense in the country. Yeah. I mean, they're somewhat unknown up front, but I think that's where a guy like Matt Patricia and his creativity and his evolution of this Jim Knowles structure that he was handed could really pay dividends. I mean, just sub packages, getting guys. They got a kid, Arvell Reese, 6. Their linebackers look like Georgia linebackers. And Ohio State, if you paid attention to Ohio State the last 10 years, we've never really looked like that, where you're talking 6'5", 245 pounds, sideline to sideline, just freaks. And you add in Caleb Downs in year 3. I think they're really, really talented in the secondary, and they had a safety battle going on between Jalen McClain and Malik Hartford, who are two guys who haven't played much, but it went so well, and those two both played so well that it's freeing up Caleb Downs to go play nickel some. To really be flexible with where they put him. And I think that flexibility is going to make them really good. And we'll find out how good, if Arch is for real. All the hype, number 1 overall pick. Grandpa said he's not coming out. He said Grandpa was wrong. We're talking a lot about this kid being just the best quarterback in the country when he's only played against UL Monroe and Mississippi State. Like, let's not act like we've seen him against good comp. When we have, he played a snap against Ohio State, got knocked out of the game. Like, he's still so unproven. I think he's talented. You watch the Mississippi State game, some of the throws, like, okay, this kid has talent, but he might be going up against the best defense in the country in one of the hardest environments in the country, in the horseshoe.
True or false, I had somebody tell me, and I don't want to be disrespectful to Jeremiah, but I had somebody tell me they thought Tate was the X factor in this game. Like, if he's the one to go off, Texas is just a world of trouble. True or false, or just thoughts around that?
I mean, I think people say that because that's what happened in the playoffs, right? They made a concerted effort. I mean, Pete Kwiatkowski did a great job of taking Jeremiah Smith out of the game. He had 1 catch for 3 yards. And when I did the film breakdown, it was all double coverage, all zone coverage. Like, they were not going to let a guy get beat man-to-man. And Carnell had a big day. Leading receiver, has 7 catches, 87 yards. I think, and that was the majority of their production. Ohio State couldn't run the ball on Texas's defense. I mean, 3.4 yards a carry. The dual-headed running back room they had went for 42 yards and 36 yards. So, like, the one thing that they did, if you really look at it, was Carnell had a big day. And so I think that was the case a year ago. But if you have a talent like Jeremiah Smith and that happened the first time around, There's no way Ryan Day lets that happen again. I think he's going to get creative with Jeremiah, where he aligns him, how he motions him, getting matchups where if that's their plan, we have a plan to still get him the football. If they leave this game, Jeremiah Smith with one catch, I think Ohio State's going to lose.
Yeah, it'd be tough to see a repeat.
Yeah.
Thoughts on just trench play both ways, where maybe a hidden advantage might be. Obviously, Texas recruits the trenches incredibly well. Ohio State recruits the trenches incredibly well.
Yeah.
What's the vibe kind of on both sides of the line of scrimmage there?
Well, I mean, you talk to Ohio State people, they think this is the best offensive line they've had in years. And pretty proven. The interior three all started last year. And because of the injuries that happened last year, down the stretch, I mean, they ended up winning the national championship with their 7th and 8th best linemen starting, playing the whole game. So all those kids come back. They added 2 transfer tackles who are kind of duking it out at right tackle. And I think they're going to be really good. Now, Texas, on the other hand, they bring back DJ Campbell at right guard, who was an okay guard last year, and replace all the other 4. And so I don't know what they're going to be up front. I mean, you're talking about their right tackles played 80 snaps last year, played 80 snaps. Their left guard played 81 snaps. Like, how good are they? We'll find out. They didn't grade well last year. They didn't play great when they did play, but college football is always an off season of development. You never know what these kids are going to be. I mean, we just did a big segment on your school, Florida State. Like, how good's Florida State going to be? I have no idea. They brought in 20 transfers. Like, they could go 12-0, and it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah.
And so these kids that haven't played, I have no idea what Texas is going to be up front. So I think Ohio State has the advantage up front.
On the other side of the ball, you mentioned offensive line for Ohio State. That Texas pass rush can be pretty brutal at times, and they've got some monsters on the defensive line. I mean, it's so obvious. So, like, I certainly don't want to sound like I'm, breaking any ground here with this take, but how big of a concern is it, and how much do they try and scheme up truly protecting Sayin against a pretty vicious defensive line?
I mean, I think let's play fantasy land. CJ Stroud's the quarterback. I think they still would game plan for Colin Simmons. Like, that's how good he is.
Oh, yeah.
But you add into the fact that now you got a rookie quarterback. His weakness is getting rattled under pressure. I think that's going to be the whole focus offensively is 1, protect Julian Sayin, don't let Colin Simmons rip his head off. And then 2, how do we not let them take Jeremiah Smith out of the game? Those are the 2 things that they've been working on for 8 months. I mean, there's got to be any shortness of preparation in this game. Both these schools have had this circled, and they've been working on it daily for 8 months.
If I had one complaint about this game, other than being noon, right, I'll throw a bone to the Ohio State fans, it's that it feels like both teams can afford to lose this game.
Oh, absolutely.
Sucks. Like, it sucks so bad because if this game happens 10, 15 years ago, the loser of this game has to be perfect the rest of the way, right? Yeah. And that's just not today's football. And so I'm complaining about something that I can't fix. There's no remedy for it. We're not going back to 4 teams or 2 teams. So it just is what it is.
Yeah.
However, who is this game more important for?
I mean, I think it's more important for Ohio State just for their team development. I feel like Arch Manning is ahead of Julian Sayin just because of experience. He's played some. And I think this game, he needs to come out of this game without his confidence ruined, even if they lose. I'm not saying it's more important for them to win the game, but I think it's more important how this game goes for the rest of the season. I feel like Arch could take a loss and bounce back. He seems like maybe a tougher kid than Julian. So I think it's really important that Julian Sayin at least feels like he played decent, even if it's a loss. And if they win, obviously that could boost his confidence through the roof. I think Ohio State's quarterback position is more fragile than Texas's. So I think this is a more important game as to how it goes than for Texas.
Do you expect this to be lower scoring? Do you think both teams try to establish the run as much as possible? Obviously, Texas secondary did a fairly good job against Ohio State, 9 months ago at this point. Do you think that this is a ground and pound, try and let the other team make the mistake first type of game, at least through the first half?
I mean, I think you're going to be – it's going to be 2 elite defenses with 2 unknown quarterbacks. Ohio State obviously has the skill at receiver just through the roof. But you really look at last year's game, Sark couldn't do anything offensively. Yeah. And their 2 touchdowns, and the big thing they did to attack Jim Knowles' defense was mismatches. Their 2 passing touchdowns were to running backs out of the backfield. Jaden Blue caught both of them. Like, Quinn Ewers didn't have a bad day, but didn't have a great day. And so I think it's going to be a defensive battle, considering And that plays in Ohio State's favor. They want it to be a defensive battle. They don't want to have to go score a bunch of points with Julian Sayin in a lot of passing scenarios with Colin Simmons with just, in a sprinter stance coming off the edge. So I think they're going to try to control the clock, and Ohio State's going to definitely try to shorten this game and make it a low-scoring game. I mean, that game last year was 21-14 towards the end of the game. You get a strip sack 6, return for a touchdown, and it looks like a blowout. But you're like, dude, they were on the red zone knocking on the door to tie that thing up 21-21. That was not a massive 14-point win like it looks.
Yeah, don't run tosses on the 5-yard line if that's anything we've learned from Saturday's game. And then, Florida State's done that a couple of times. And then, Texas there in the championship as well. Let's look across the country just real quick, and then I'll get a prediction from you, and we'll get out of here. I appreciate you for hanging out. But what LSU, Clemson, Florida State, Alabama, just quick thoughts on those two, and then we'll talk this one and get out.
I'm really high on Clemson right now. I think Cade Klubnik was really good last year. I'm anticipating a level up, and I just trust, one, it's in Clemson, and I trust what Dabo has going on over there more than Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly can't field a defense for whatever reason, a problem LSU has never really had. I mean, LSU, look, you think back to Les Miles' days, like their offense was putrid, but their defense was freak shows. And somehow Brian Kelly comes to Baton Rouge, and they have Heisman Trophy winners, best receiver, like just ridiculous. But they can't field a defense. And until he shows me he can field a defense, he's Lincoln Riley to me.
Yeah.
Like I got Clemson winning, and I think covering in that game. And the Florida State Bama it's just too impossible. I mean, I talked about it on my show today. Like Florida State has 8 transfer starters on offense.
Yeah.
How are you going to predict what that team's going to do? No different than Mel Tucker in year 1 at Michigan State. Everyone thought they were going to be a 3-win team. They go 11-2 because they hit the portal. Kenneth Walker, it's such an unknown at Florida State. I know coaches that used to be at Florida State, and they speak very highly of Mike Norvell, just his football acumen, how good of a coach he is. I don't know what happened last year. It's still one of the most mind-blowing things I've ever seen in college football. But you have to think they bring in a slew of new players. I'm not a Thomas Castellanos guy. I think he's an average quarterback. But they didn't even have average quarterback play last year, so it's an improvement to an extent. But it's like a 14-point spread. I believe in Bama, with highest blue chip ratio in the country. They don't have Jalen Milroe throwing it to the wrong team. I think Bama probably wins, but I can't say that with conviction because I don't know if Florida State is.
Yeah, they're the hardest team to project in all of college football to me. 51 new players, 7 new coaches, a totally different style. Malzahn calling the plays. Like, who the heck knows? I think Bama wins and gets pretty close to covering too. But I mean, God, it would not even be a 5 on the scale of shock factor to me if they were to somehow pull off an upset, especially considering what Bama was at the end of last year.
Absolutely. There's no doubt. I mean, especially with the PTSD. I mean, you go 13-0, should have made the playoffs. We all know that. And then next year, just abysmally terrible. It's like there's a lot of PTSD there.
What about this one? Give me I don't know if you've got a score this early in the week, although you've known about this matchup for 9 months. So what are you thinking happens on Saturday in the shoe?
Dude, I just don't know what Julian's saying is. I mean, I think if he could just not turn the ball over, I'm going to pick Ohio State to win the game. I think if Julian Sayin could just not turn the ball over, they have the pieces. Their weapons are ridiculous. Their defense is going to be suffocating. I think it'll be a top 5 defense in college football again. And I think Matt Patricia, in a weird way, Jim Knowles rebuilt that defense into the most dominant defense in college football. And somehow I still feel like Matt Patricia is a level up from that. And so I think it being at home helps. I think if he can just not turn the ball over and get rid of the football and just get the ball, just distribute it. We don't need to launch it 45 yards down the field, but if you do, you got probably the biggest freak in college football going up to get it.
Yeah.
I just think this is one that feels like Texas should win, and for that reason, I'm picking Ohio State.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like, Texas's roster is ridiculous, and there's no doubt about that. I have more confidence in Arch. I think playing at home and having more confidence around the weapons is why I would lean Ohio State here. But man, I'm not super confident in this matchup. It's probably the biggest matchup that I have no confidence in who's going to win and should make for a great game. So Zach, where can people follow you? Where can they find you, bud?
We're everywhere, man. YouTube, our show, Menace to Sports, and we have an NFL show called Pound Town on the Cleveland Browns if you're an NFL fan, and then on Twitter, everywhere, Coach Zach Smith.
Awesome. Appreciate you, buddy.
Appreciate you.